Welcome back. Here we are in the home, or the home, of Sherlock Sholmes. The Shlome of the home of Sherlock Sholmes. There we go. I got it. Did I get it? I think I got it. Anyway, we got Iris here. Iris Wilson. We'll ask what her deductions are later, but we'll speak to Iris here. The home of Sherlock Sholmes. Yes. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey. Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you so much. Oh, no, not at all. I'm so sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming. Though at the time, we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Like this? I think that's better than gulp. Thinking back now. You left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you? Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gina Lestrade. Oh, Ginny? Yes, she's a professional pickpocket. So we found out. It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that. Are you referring to that trial-disrupting gun-like contraption? Exactly. So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my inventions. This girl is dangerous. Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologize to my trusty technician. Sorry, your technician? Hurley, of course. Silly. Hurley? Yeah, Hurley? Yes, Sherlock Sholmes. We live here together. This is his home. I had no idea the great detective had an interesting younger daughter. Daughter? Not likely. What? I wouldn't call him Hurley if he was my father, would I? Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes? Well, I expect you found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. Even these days. So the solution is to share the cost with a partner, a roommate, a bit like how they do in LA. Your roommates? I hope you don't mind me asking, Iris, but how old are you? 10 at last this year, so 9. Well, what of your mother and father? Well, she could be 10 earlier in the year, I suppose. Oh no, they're not around. Oh, I see. I wonder what the story is there. Something tells me you're intimately involved with a certain one of them. Wilson. Oh yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course. Go ahead, Susie. I am a very great fan of the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes and... Oh, you have a copy of Rant's magazine. Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting. My stories are being read on the other side of the world. My stories? That's right. Hurley is always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I was the only one who ever heard them, don't you think? The posers, though. Goodness. Last night, he was telling me all about a new case he just solved on a steamship traveling from a faraway land. So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. So you are the author? Yes. I'll let you in on a secret if you like. I'm going to call the latest adventure The Speckled Band. The Speckled Band? That's certainly very familiar. Of course, I always change 1 or 2 details in the stories, here and there. This time, I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble. Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually. Yes, and of course I know that a snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case exactly, but... It's a story. Some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think. Don't you? So, do you mean to say... Are the stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in the Rant's magazine all written by me, yes. Oh, my wonderful and very modern typewriter, yeah. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson. Susato-san's getting more and more worked up. Ah, yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the doctor of medicine part? That's all true too. I am a doctor of medicine. No, 10 years old? 10 years old? Hmm. It's quite incredible. But Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Ah, yes. I did alter the setting slightly, for the stories to be more compelling. Oh. Well, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow? I suppose it does, yes. Poor Susato-san. She looks like her whole world has just fallen apart. Your deductions just now. About before. Yes. What's on your mind, Runo? Do tell me. How did you know that I was a lawyer? We just arrived in London, I mean. Yes. Oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. How did you know all of that? Oh, that's what you mean. Please, tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course. I'd be delighted, although there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin. Iris Wilson is proud to present her Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Oh my, where are we? We've traveled to a different dimension. First of all, I knew already that you were a lawyer, Runo. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber. But you also said that we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that? I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket. Oh. So I was reasonably confident that you must have only just arrived in the country. And on top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs. The Reaper of the Bailey. I walked right into that one, didn't I? And then I noticed a red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand. You were given that when you visited the local prison to meet with a suspect, weren't you? Earlier today. Ah. They used those stamps to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. I didn't realize. The red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. So, that told me that even though you had only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilded, the two of you had already had a cause to visit a foreign inmate at a local prison. However, neither of you was wearing a particular sad expression on your face, so I concluded that the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case. I see. She's better at this than some other guy. And so far she's bang on the money, isn't she? Like, right on it. But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me that he'd caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling. A Japanese man? Well, clearly that must have been Mr. Natsume. Now, Runo has that fancy Japanese sword. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that you both came from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. And there was only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case. No. No, we came for you, because you're clearly the one who's more intelligent. There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley's always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. And that's all there was to it, really. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions. Again, it's not really a deduction, it's... Anyway. Same logic as last time, but it's like... Yeah. Well, was it a winner? Were my deductions correct? They were spot on. That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction. You even managed the certain something of Mr. Schlome's delivery. Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please. The case of the Japanese man. So, yesterday, Mr. Schlome's apprehended a Japanese man, you were saying? Yes. Hurley had just arrived back in London after a sea voyage, but the police were waiting for him at the railway station to take him directly to the crime scene. The great detective is a popular man, it seems. Apparently a woman was stabbed on a quiet street somewhere in town. There were witnesses who had seen a short, shifty-looking, stooped man running away from the scene. A short, shifty-looking, stooped man. Mr. Natsume, beyond any doubt. Seki-san said that he didn't see anybody else on the street at all. But it seems there were witnesses after all. Hurley used his great deductive powers to determine the man's address. There was a lodging room very nearby. He went directly there with the police. And what did they find? A short, shifty-looking, stooped man shivering in fear. Mr. Schlome's great deduction certainly hit the mark that time. Of course it did. He's a great detective. Still, that means the incident occurred only 2 days ago. Surely tomorrow is too soon for the trial, isn't it? Definitely. We have no time to investigate properly. Hurley says that London is rife with crime. Oh. Scotland Yard is doing its best, but they can't stay on top of it, apparently. Oh dear, I didn't realize the situation was so dire. And that's why they can't afford to spend too much time investigating cases and trying the criminals in court. Staff and money are both short. Crimes are usually pinned on the first suspicious person. That's terrible. I suppose it's the harsh reality of the workings of the world's greatest justice system. I suppose it is. But in that case, I don't hold out much hope for Soseki-san. And thank you for answering so many of our questions, Iris. This has been very informative. Oh, you're most welcome. I've had so much fun. Do you happen to know where Mr. Schlome's is at the moment? As you guessed, we'd like to ask him some questions about this case as well. I expect Hurley is still investigating the scene. The case involving Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, Mr. Natsume. Thank you, Iris, thank you. Me and you are of a kind. Hurley said he was going to the man's lodgings. If you leave now, you'll probably catch him there. Iris, do you know where these lodgings are? Well, I imagine the police are still investigating the scene of the crime themselves, aren't they? Did you happen to come across a detective by the name of Gregson when you were there? Yes, we know Inspector Gregson. Ah, goody. In that case, give Gregsy this for me, would you? What exactly is it? I mean, it's a business card, but what's the... I don't know the denomination of the money. Is it a shilling, perhaps? If you do that, I'm sure he'll tell you what you want to know. I mean, I only know the money in the UK after decimalisation, so it's sort of like this was too far back for me, obviously. It was in the 70s, I think, when we changed to decimal. What is this? A 5 shilling piece. Oh, 5 shillings. And a postcard, it seems. Iris's postcard has been entered into the court record. It reads... Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem. Gosh, that'll make the inspector help us, will it? Apparently. Well, thank you, Iris. We'll give it a try. Good luck, then. I'm going to return to writing my manuscript, The Speckled Band. And I'll be making more special blends of tea. So come back again soon. Oh, certainly will. We'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Iris. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, it's back to the scene of the crime. So, somewhat dubious that they would exert any influence over the men of Scotland Yard at all, we headed back to the scene with Iris's curious note and one of the world's heaviest silver coins in hand. To be continued? If I'd have known that, you know, I would have ended the other part there, you know, it's very, very strange. No! Tick. The 19th of February, 2:38 p.m. Briar Road. It looks as though the police are still here, carrying on with their investigation. Perfect. Let's find Inspector Gregson as quickly as possible. Yes, and let's see if he'll take a break from his chips. It's the fish he's mainly eating. His chips to look at that silver tip Iris gave us for him. Alright, mate. I don't. It's that look in his eyes. Look at it. Steely. Alright, so clearly we're meant to present that. Alright, present. Should have maybe presented that to Iris, see what she would have said. Inspector Gregson, do you have a moment? I'm sorry to say I don't. I'm a very busy man. Much too busy to talk to a pair of foreign get-abouts. That's for sure. We have these for you. A present from Miss Iris Wilson. What? For me? From her ladyship? Her ladyship? Literally what I was saying. Give that here at once. Come on, hand it over, that's for me. Don't wait for me to give it to you, will you? What was that coin exactly? It's a silver crown, obviously. But it's a lot more than that. It's, well, it's an appearance fee, that's what it is. An appearance fee? Oh, I see, you mean... That's right. The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Her ladyship always offers me a little financial reward for featuring me, every time. Yes, of course. I know all about your exploits, Inspector. I read them avidly. Of course, using my name without my say-so does make me the butt of a lot of unpleasant jokes, but still. I'm sorry, Inspector. That must be difficult for you. Never you mind that. So, what do you want to know then, eh? Sorry? Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem, it says. Obviously, it's not a problem. Go on, fire away. What do you want to know? Well, if you wouldn't mind, Inspector, we'd very much like to know the address of Miss Natsume's lodgings. Did I say Miss? Ah, the little knife-wielding mustached Japanese fellow. He lives in a right old hovel. Just over there, look. Ah. On the first floor of that house, on the corner where that wreck of a bicycle's propped up. That is nearby indeed, yes, quite nearby. If I remember rightly, the landlord is a Mr. John... Garridip? Right, well, if you see her again, you make sure you give her ladyship my regard, you hear? I mean it. I'll tell her that Gregson sends his very best wishes. Don't worry, Inspector, we will. Goodbye for now, then. And long live her ladyship. Alright. Well, at least he told us what we wanted to know before he left. Yes, so then, shall we go and see what we can find in Mr. Natsume's lodgings? Definitely. Alright then. A new location has been added, well, I should hope so. "19th of February. Mr. Natsume's lodgings. It's quite the collection of stuff. And who started the fire? Oh, you probably. May I help you? How come there's not bricks on the windows? Ah, yes. Would this be the residence of Mr. John Garridip? Indeed it would, sir. And who may I say is calling? My name is Ryu. The shells on the mantelpiece there. They're not even shells, are they? The actual bullets. We shall see anyway. Mr. Naruhodo is representing Mr. Soseki Natsumi. I believe he takes lodgings here? We would very much like to ask him some questions about our client. One moment, please. I shall convey the message to Mr. Garadip. It looks like there's a lot of French stuff going on here, perhaps. We shall see. Did you see that, Miss Susato? That was a real-life English maid. I know. As I understand it, anyone of standing in English society employs a number of household staff. But that was the first time I've ever seen one in the flesh. Oh, this day keeps getting better. It certainly feels like we've finally arrived now, doesn't it? We need only to meet a butler, and the experience will be complete. Well, I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but I understand the sentiment. Thank you for waiting. Mr. Garadeb will see you now, this way. Oh, there he is. Like, it's just like, that's here, clearly him in the picture. That portrait of Mr. Garadeb is glaring at me, I swear. Have you noticed that all the little frames contain photographic prints of Mr. Garadeb as well? Yes, and there seems to be a statue of a lion on the mantelpiece as well. Ah yes, seemed to come back from the local pawnbroker with the little trinket. Seemed to come back... What do you mean? The chap who runs the place is a bally wizard. Went in to sell him something and came out with that thing. In point of fact, now I think about it, I rather often find myself leaving the place with something I don't need. Okay. What's that on the ground over there? The lion ornament certainly does seem surplus to requirements. Sister-san doesn't pull her punches. Or her throws, for that matter. Right there, on the ground. What's this? Why can I investigate? Like, why is there a rip? In the garden. In the garden? Where did I get a garden from? In the carpet. In the carpet. And why is there is that a candle? Did this burn? I don't know. What's going on here? Look at that enormous screen. It must have been put there deliberately, surely. Yes, it certainly seems like someone's trying to hide something from view. What could be behind it, I wonder? I'm going to have a very quick look. Just a little peek. Maybe let's not, Miss Susato. I think the maid is going to head us off with a cup of tea. Like, okay. So there's something going on behind here, clearly. That's what we need to find out. Oh, maybe Scottish, actually. It's just a tartan. Trying to think, like, what his origins are. It's like... Could be several things. Just could be navy. It's just his name is a bit strange, and it's sort of like... The medal. Let's look at the medal is making me think France, just because of its colour scheme. But I could be wrong. That looks like a Medal of Honor, and it's showcased on a very grand banner. Yes, it's displayed with some pride, I would say, although it bothers me that it's not straight. What? That old thing? Sorry? I should be glad to see the back of it. The General would turn in his grave if I disposed of it. The wall's the best place for it. It keeps the bally thing out of my way. So it's just been polished to shine by accident, I suppose. There appears to be an inscription on the medal itself. Look. Let me see. It says, for distinguished participation. Sounds like the kind of honours even I could be in line for. So what medal is it, then? Well, one doesn't like to blow one's own trumpet, but I was given that for my time in the army. Can't measure an officer by the number of medals to his name, of course. Common knowledge in military circles. Well, yes, of course. So what medal is that? Does anybody know? Are those mortar shells? They're enormous. I was right on the shelves then. Ah, I hadn't noticed. What are they doing here? Ah, those old things. A couple of little rounds I accidentally fired into the barracks during training, you know. Became a bit of colourful regiment folklore, that incident. You mean you deliberately hunted out the spent shells? Well, I wouldn't say deliberately, exactly. They were only scrap iron, after all, usually just thrown away, I believe. But you never know when things might come in useful, do you? Useful for what, exactly? as well. Now he's sounding more like British here. Joan here did manage to knock one of the bally things on my foot the other day while she was dusting. Oh no. Hadn't shed a tear since 1869 before then, you know. Maybe reconsider throwing them away? No, sell them. Especially because they're iron. That uniform looks fairly ancient, doesn't it? It's clearly been well looked after, though. And that old thing? Not much better than rags, really. Oh. Well, that ceremony garb in my retirement past, you know. But I'm not one for dwelling on the past, me. Would have gladly thrown it out, but you know how it is. Anyway, it doesn't hurt to have the old piece of memorabilia lying around, does it? Oh, I see. Perhaps we should leave the past in the past. Mayhaps. That's a full-size cannon. What's it doing in here? Oh my, it's real. I thought it might be a replica. That old thing? Bah, that's little more than a toy. Sorry? The army was sending it off when I retired, so decided to give it a new home. Never know when the enemy might attack next. Surely useful to have a cannon about the house. Really? It isn't overkill? Be prepared, I always say. You never know what this twisted world is going to throw at you next, boy. Do you think there may be trouble brewing, Mr. Ganadip? Always is. Take Joan here. Never fails to have a clean apron in reserve. Dries them over the barrel, you see. They dry very well on the cannon there, Joan tells me. Which rather proves my point, I feel. It's been reduced to a drying rack. No wonder the huge cannon looks like it's hanging its head in shame. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Books. I notice you have a pile of books here, Mr. Garadeb. Do you enjoy reading? Never experienced a London winter, boy. The nights are long. No better way to pass the time in front of the fire of a jolly good book. That is true across the entire UK, by the way. The nights in winter are so long. We're at a point where it's like, if you know like the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle and stuff like that, where it goes like half the year it's day, half the year it's night. Think just slightly further down, and that's where the UK is. It's like in summer, we don't actually have nighttime. Yeah, it's like I was pointing out to Sarah at one point where she was like, I was talking about I was going to go for a walk in the morning and it was like 4 or 5 a.m, something around that. And she was like, but it's dark out. I was like, there's a blue sky outside. I'm fine. She was like, yeah, but there'll be people, it'll be dark, and you might get robbed. I was like, I'm fine. It's daylight. We get daylight at this hour in summer, but the opposite happens in winter. It's like we get like 4, maybe 5 hours of daylight in winter. It's just, and the sun is so low, it's so cold and dark and depressing. Oh, there's a copy of Rant's magazine here, I see. No doubt Mr. Garadeb enjoys the adventures of Herlock Sholmes too. The great detective has a great many followers, it would seem. Indeed. Okay, so... leave them two till last. I want to look at the cakes here. Oh look! What a wonderful collection of cakes lined up on that gleaming silver cake stand. Lined up? It looks more like someone has half demolished them to me. Afternoon tea is a time of indulgence, you know. It is quite the English way. Oh yes, of course, cool. It is Mr. Garadeb's custom to take 2 cakes with his tea. 2! My god, what's going on with the stuff on the right, though? Sounds delightful. Oh, wait a minute, though. There are at least 10 cakes on this cake stand. Well, naturally. It would never do to waste the leftovers. So whatever Mr. Garadeb doesn't eat, I say to myself, Joan, you shall have to tidy up. How magnanimous of you. Yeah. What's going on here? And there's the missing candle as well. Look at this crockery on display here. It's rather unusual, isn't it? Oh my, a genuine London dresser. Isn't it delightful? No. Look at it. Although the shelves seem to be broken and the crockery is... oh dear. It's in pieces. It really is. The word cracked wouldn't do that chinaware justice. Ah, I wonder... Perhaps the cannon was fired at it. Well, maybe. Yeah, it's probably something like that. But let's not delve too deeply here. Like, where's the missing candle, though? This old candle holder looks a little out of place here, wouldn't you say? Yes, you're right. It's clearly supposed to be gold, but it's almost completely black for some reason. That old thing, yes, just a cheap piece of ironmongery. Gimcrack, really. Oh. Used it while I was studying, don't you know? For my commission. I know it's old. Hardly worth hanging on to, really. But, well, still has its uses sometimes. Of course. Does everything in this room have some elaborate story behind it? They're memories, Mr. Naruhodo. Memories. Indeed. I like that she pointed that out. Can I not go further left? No. And this window looks out over Briar Road, where the young woman was attacked. Yeah, but wasn't the window bricks? Oh yes, I can make out the policeman on the far side of the road investigating the crime scene. The glass is rather murky, isn't it? Can't see very clearly. Does this thing open at all, I wonder? I shouldn't underestimate the bitterness of a London winter, sir. Yeah, you'd feel that coming in, trust me. Sorry? As soon as you open that window, the tea will freeze in the pot. Yes, quite. No Londoner would go opening windows at dusk in the middle of winter, I assure you. Seems very unlikely that these two would have seen anything of the incident, then. Like, bitterly cold. It's hard to describe the cold. It's that sort of thing when I try and explain in summer. People, it's that case of like... UK summers are so strange for us because our winters are so cold. We have both ends of it. It's like we get like bitterly Arctic colds in winter. Like really cold. And the summer's just, oh god, it's humid and hot. When it's like spring and autumn, it's nice. Sometimes. But anyway, we're going to end this part here. In the next part, we'll speak to these two and see what's going on. Maybe we'll get a spot of tea. We shall see. Ta-ta for now.